California passed a pretty controversial bill. It has been passed by the legislature. This is why sometimes it's important to pay attention to what's happening in the states. Gavin Newsom has kind of flown under the radar since Kamala Harris has been announced as the Democrat candidate for 2024. You don't hear corporate media talking about Gavin Newsom as much anymore. Have you noticed that? Yeah, because he's not considered in the running anymore for president. Meanwhile, things have been happening in California. So I don't want us to forget about that. He is still the governor there. So I want to get started with this news that broke that is giving a lot of people pause. California lawmakers okay a bill offering migrants home ownership aid. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here from News Nation, and I'm going to break this down.
Eyes are on California as a controversial bill providing thousands of dollars in home loans to illegal migrants passes the state Senate, leaving it up to Governor Gavin Newsom to decide. News Nation's Kelsey Kernstein joins us with all the details. Kelsey, this bill facing a lot of scrutiny this morning.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. In fact, you've got California lawmakers really calling this one of the most divisive bills they've seen so far this year. So what we can tell you is that it passed through the California Senate late last night. Now there's a lot of questions as to whether Governor Gavin Newsom will sign it into law and how it's going to be perceived nationally. Now, it's called Assembly Bill 1840. If it gets signed into law, illegal immigrants, would be allowed to enter a lottery system that would give them up to 20% in down payment assistance or up to $150,000 in home loans. So this is essentially.
Pausing there for just a second. Did everybody hear that? Let's go back to this just one more time about what this assistance will entail.
Into law and how it's going to be perceived nationally. Now, it's called Assembly Bill 1840. If it gets signed into law, illegal immigrants, would be allowed to enter a lottery system that would give them up to 20% in down payment assistance or up to $150,000 in home loans. So this is essentially.
Okay. So again, the bill did pass the legislature. So it's one or the other. It's 20% assistance towards the down payment or $150,000 towards home ownership. So I want to be very clear. This is not to rent an apartment. This is to own a home. Let's continue.
Interest-free down payments. So far this year, we know that 18,000 people have applied for the California Dream for All program, and only 1,700 were chosen. But if this bill becomes law, it would expand the eligibility of the program, including illegal immigrants. And not all illegal immigrants would qualify. So this would mean that they would be able to show, they'd have to show that they pay taxes, they provide a taxpayer ID or a social security number. But with illegal immigration, such a hot button topic this election year, there's questions on if passing this bill might make Democrats look soft on the issue. Now,
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, 20% or $150,000. Now, I am one of those people that believes that we should have housing for everyone. I approve of housing for all. That being said, as many times as I hear politicians say that we cannot do things for people in this country, mainly for American citizens, as many times as I hear politicians say you cannot do something for Black residents in this country because you can't afford it. Or my favorite line is, how are we going to pay for that? But if you notice, when it comes, and this is the point I've been making over and over again, when it comes to certain groups, all of a sudden, the question is not how are they going to pay for it? They just do it. So here's what is going to happen. This bill has to be signed into law by Gavin Newsom in order for it to obviously come into fruition. I don't know what Gavin Newsom is going to do, but we do know that Gavin Newsom has approved health care before. I think that was last year. The problem that I have is this. obviously, California residents are going to take issue. And it's not, I'm telling you, it's coming from all sides because I've seen the responses. It's coming from white people, black people, Latino. It's coming from all different races who are like, hey, wait a minute. I've lived here all my life. I've never been able to afford to buy a home. Where's the assistance to help me get a down payment on a home? So it's coming from all sides. So just FYI. And it says something to the people who did come here legally. It says something to them. And I'm thinking about this, and some of my friends who immigrated to the US that came here, legally, did the paperwork and everything. They're kind of sitting back like, well, where's my help with this? I have a high school friend right now that moved to California a couple years ago who lives in a house, but they don't own it. They can't afford to buy a house in California, and she's a lawyer. You know how much homes cost in California? Regardless if you're in Southern California or Northern California. Let's continue.
This is why some are in fact speculating that Governor Gavin Newsom, a strong party loyalist, will ultimately veto this bill.
People against this bill, Kelsey, what are they saying this morning?
Yeah, so there's a lot of mixed reviews when it comes to this bill, but we've spoken to several Republicans, and they are saying that they are sick of what they're calling free handouts that California gives to illegal immigrants. Here's what a San Diego County mayor had to say.
The idea of giving them the opportunity to buy a house and get a free amount of money from the state to do so. This at a time when we're $72 billion in debt and our own young people can't afford to buy housing.
Yeah, so we have also reached out to Governor Gavin Newsom's office, who said they would evaluate the bill once it reaches his desk. Should be very interesting to see what he does here just ahead of the presidential election.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, so, California is the most expensive state to live in the United States. We went through the cost of living report for 2024 back in July. I might need to bring that back up again at some point before the end of the year, because the average person in California will never be able to afford to buy a home. It's kind of similar to Massachusetts too, although we're not the most expensive, but we're in that top 3, where the average person in Massachusetts, especially today, if you didn't get in during the pandemic when the interest rates were really low, the average person can't afford to buy a home in Massachusetts now. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about this. Again, Gavin Newsom has not signed off on this, but people are wondering, will he or will he not? Gavin Newsom hasn't committed to giving California migrants $150K for a home. As immigration continues to be a hot issue in 2024 elections, California is voting on a law this week that could open up $150,000 in down payment assistance to migrants. Assembly Bill 1840. It was proposed by Assemblyman Joaquin Arambula and would alter the eligibility requirements for the California Dream for All program. Now, currently, the down payment assistance is limited to citizens in California, but the new law would allow undocumented immigrants to receive up to $150,000 in housing grants. The California Dream for All allows residents to earn 20% in down payment help from the state. It's a highly competitive program with only 1,700 Californians previously receiving the grants out of 18,000 applicants. And to this, I say again, America is a wealthy country. There's no reason why anyone in this country should be homeless. Yet I can go to Harvard Square and I'll see homeless veterans at the T. There's a lot of homeless people in this country. And no, not all of them are on drugs. And no, not all of them are unemployed. Now, we can't take care of the people who are already here, but here it is in California. They're trying to go ahead and take care of the people who just got here. So think about this for a second. It was just, I think, a week or two ago where Gavin Newsom was clearing out all the homeless encampments to make the state look better. And I always wonder, like, where are those people going to go? You know, why aren't you helping those people get homes? Why aren't you helping anybody? There's a reason why people are leaving California. There's a reason why California has had mass exodus to other states that are more affordable for people to live in. It's happening here in Massachusetts too. People are leaving Massachusetts and they're moving further south where they can have a lower cost of living. And so that also is causing home prices to increase in the South. It used to be really cheap and affordable to get a house in North Carolina. That is no longer the case because so many people have moved there because it was a cheaper place to live. So the fact that anybody in this country doesn't have a home, there's no excuse for it. Now, we have a military budget, a defense budget that's over $860 billion. And I've said this before, if we were to reduce the defense budget, we could help our people. We could help people here. We could have health care. We could have like homes for people. We need homes for all. The problem that you're running into with California, and they're not alone. You've seen this in New York City. You've seen it in Chicago. And I've seen it right here in Boston, Massachusetts, is that all of a sudden these mayors and governors, and Gavin Newsom is a governor, they seem to have all these resources to help the migrant community, but they never had those resources to help people who are already here. When Black people that live in poor neighborhoods here in Boston were asking for help, we don't have the money. We're strapped. Sorry, we just don't have the resources. But all of a sudden, a new group shows up and all of a sudden you magically have the resources. So this is the problem. The other problem that you are going to run into is that this is going to put the workers against each other. Obviously, people that are a part of the lower income working class that particularly tend to be Black and other minorities are going to have some type of, I don't want to say anger, but they're going to feel some type of way towards the migrant communities because they see them getting benefits that they're not getting. So you have a capitalist class that is actively putting workers against each other. Because the reality is, if you can get someone to do the job for a cheaper price and you're greedy, you're going to hire someone that is going to do it for a cheaper price. Think back to when we had more manufacturing in this country, when cars were made in this country and all the car parts were made in this country. Why did that change? Because the CEOs of those companies became greedy and realized that I can get those parts made cheaply overseas. And I can lay off a lot of these people that are working for me right now and have less people work for me. And I can even pay them less because where else are they going to go? So I always point to this as a labor issue and a class issue. And it shouldn't happen at all. Now, I want to show you something else in this article, and then I'm going to tell you who you really need to point your finger at. Gavin looks scared in that picture. While Gavin Newsom hasn't indicated his support for the program, the new rules would permit undocumented immigrants to apply as long as they had a taxpayer ID number or a social security number. And this is, I'm glad they put this here because this does debunk a myth I've heard from people quite some times. People say they don't have social security numbers. That's not true. So just keep that in mind. This bill would specify that an applicant who meets all other requirements for a loan under the program and who is otherwise eligible under applicable federal and state law shall not be disqualified solely based on the applicant's immigration status, the proposal shares. So it says the bill has already drawn its fair share of criticism. While some feel the state shouldn't use taxpayer money to help non-U.S. citizens, Arambula said it would be beneficial to all Californian residents who are struggling to achieve home ownership. He goes on to say the ability to do this strengthens local economies And that benefits all people who call California home. The social and economic benefits of home ownership should be available to everyone. As such, the California Dream for All program should be available to all. When undocumented individuals are excluded from such programs, they miss out on crucial method of securing financial security and personal stability for themselves and their families. So I can think of other groups who have missed out on financial security and personal stability for themselves and their families. I don't see anybody rushing to help them get any houses. I don't see people rushing to help people who are freedmen, American descendants of slavery. I don't see people trying to help all of us get homes. And granted, I do have a home. Thankfully, due to the 2020, during the pandemic, the interest rates dropped dramatically. That helped me out. But the reality is, not everybody got that opportunity. So where is that same push? I want to show you something. So again, Gavin Newsom, we'll see if he signs this into law. But I want to talk about the wealth gap in California. We're focused on California because that is where this may happen. Persistent gaps for Black Californians would take over 248 years to close. So check this out. This is always important to look at what the data says. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. Almost 2 decades ago, the inaugural State of Black California report was the first to provide a comprehensive look at how the material conditions and socioeconomic outcomes for Black Californians fared compared to other racial and ethnic groups. Here's the part people need to see. Utilizing the Equality Index, which was modeled after one developed by international consulting group Global Insight, Inc. The researchers found that Black Californians' overall socioeconomic outcomes improved by an average of 21.7% in the state based on census data from 2000 to 2020. The analysis was informed by an extensive set of outcome data in economics, housing, health, education, criminal justice, and civic engagement, with the largest improvements occurring in education. However, and this is the part people need to take home, yet in 2020, compared to white Californians who serve as the baseline for Equality Index at a score of 1.00, researchers also found that Black Californians had the lowest score, 0.69, of all racial minority groups. So let me just say this for everyone to understand. In California, and you'll see this is probably similar in other states as well. In California, Black Californians had the lowest score of 0.69 of all racial minority groups. Now let me show you what the other groups had. This means that the outcomes of Black residents scored 30% lower than white Californians across all analyzed socioeconomic measures. All analyzed socioeconomic measures. Other racial and ethnic group scores were 0.72 for Latinos, 0.74 for Indigenous Californians, and 1.14 for Asian Pacific Islanders. So this is what I've tried to explain to people before. We are at the bottom. So when I think about this program, this legislation, this bill that was just passed by the California legislator, when I think about that, where is this same type of bill or measurement to help out Black Californians who are at the bottom of all the other racial ethnic groups? There have been multiple measures in California to push for reparations for Black Californians. Camilla, who was a part of the task force, she came onto the show to talk about it. And the response was, we can't do this. We can't afford it. Where did all this money come from? So I see sometimes people get upset and they say, well, why bring this up? Why make this an issue? Everybody should have a home. We should have housing for all. But we also need to start asking, why is it that when Black residents ask for something or make demands, why is the response always, we don't have the money or it's not going to happen? Remember when Joe Biden had that meeting with the civil rights leaders? Remember Joe Biden said, we're not going to talk about that right now. Now's not the time. Just put that to the side. We're not dealing with you right now. We don't want to deal with your issues and your concerns. But here is $150,000 or 20% down payment to help migrants that just came to California, those that win this lottery program. Additionally, Black Californians were only able to close the overall racial gap, in social and economic outcomes with whites by a mere 4% or 3 index points, 0.66 to 0.69 since 2000. And this is the part I need you to take home. According to that rate of change, closing the racial gap between Black and white Californians would take over 248 years. So now we're going to have to go to Twitter because I want to show you something else, because Roger sent me something right before I went live. And I do want to go ahead and show you that. Oh, I can't show you that there. Let me go over here because I want to show you something else. When I talk about demands that have been made, and it's just disturbing. Because I've never seen our politicians move this way for us. I've never seen them do this. And so I want to show you this. Killer Mike, thank you, Roger Meadows, for sharing this with me. Killer Mike shared this. He said, please read and take action if compelled. So he's referring to this tweet here from Everything Descendant American. It says, emergency call to action. The California Legislative Black Caucus does not want to represent our reparation bill to the Assembly. Read that again. The California Legislative Black Caucus does not want to present our reparation bill to the Assembly. Call these numbers now and tell them you support our bills, or go to the Capitol today or tomorrow. So not only do they not want to present the reparation bill to the Assembly, you even have the Black Caucus in California working against Black Californians. Does that sound familiar? Don't you have the Black Caucus in DC working against Black people in the United States? So do you see what's happening here? Now they don't want to do, you see this? They don't even want to present it. They don't even want to present it to the legislator. Don't even want to give it a chance. Now, one of them responded, Assembly Maker Tina McKinnon, and she's getting roasted in the comments, by the way. She said, our work towards justice is not limited to one bill in 1 year. The Congressional Black Caucus, California Black Caucus reparations package is a multi-year effort, and I hope we can work together next year to see this work through. So she's really getting roasted in the comments. Let me make sure I'm under the right one. Yeah. So I saw there was a comment here from Be Easy, but I can't see it now because I think too many people have responded. But this person here, after all the sweat and equity put into garnering support for all three bills, it is a major miscarriage of justice for the California Black Caucus to commit to denying justice to descendants of freedmen while promising justice and equality for everyone else. We see you for what you are. So here's my problem, folks. They just passed this bill to give 20% down payment or $150,000 assistance to migrants who just came to California. It passed the legislature. However, when it comes to a reparations bill, the Black Caucus in California won't even present the bill to the assembly. Do you see the delay? Do you see the problem? This is why people say the things that they say about you are not putting our needs first. You are not prioritizing what we need. Not even the Black Caucus in California, apparently. But they can easily just help somebody else get homes just like that. We have to do better for our people. Like it's unnerving to me because like I said, I agree everybody should have housing. I feel like we have enough money in this country where everyone could have housing. I feel like there's no excuse. There really isn't. And then I see that now they want to give housing to people, but they're not even prioritizing the people who are residents. They're not even prioritizing the people who are already here, who grew up here. Something has to change. And I don't know if Gavin Newsom is going to pass this bill or not. He has to sign it. I don't know if he's going to or not. We'll have to wait and see, but I'll be keeping an eye on this because something has to change, ladies and gentlemen. And this is why I say, and people like to smear me and call me right wing because I make these comments. Something has to change. There is no reason at this point in time for Black voters to continue to support the Democratic Party. Take that and do with it whatever you want. But there's no reason because the Democratic Party is not doing anything for the Black community. And people say, well, oh, do you want them to go to the Republican Party? No, I don't want you to go support any party that is not doing anything for your community. But I don't think it is fair for Black people to continue to vote for the Democratic Party and they're putting everybody else before you. And you see this now also with Kamala Harris. We'll get to her in a minute. You see the same thing with her. So people can say whatever they want about me. So they can say whatever they want about me. But the reality is, I don't see them doing this to any other group. I don't see them going to, even right now, with the genocide in Gaza, I don't see them smearing Palestinians and calling them right wing for not being so willing to support the Democratic Party. I don't see them smearing the Latino community if they don't want to support the Democratic Party without getting concessions. But the moment that Black voters start to push back and say, I am no longer going to support you unless we get these concessions from you, all of a sudden, Black voters are right wing, or Black men have been confused by Donald Trump, or they have been misinformed, or they are low information voters. People have to wake up. You don't owe anyone your vote. period. Let's go to some of the comments. Ashura said migrants are getting $150K a house, but no reparations for freedmen. That's exactly what I'm saying. Exactly my point. Adi says, hi, Sabby, Catwoman style. Love your show. Maybe love your show. Hey, I don't know what the Catwoman thing is, but welcome. Danny says, how are they going to pay for that? JB says, this is once again another ploy by Dems to divide the workers by treating one marginalized group better than another. This is divide and conquer tactic. We need to change the system to help everyone. Right. And another thing I want to say is now what people are going to do, a lot of people will get upset at the migrants. Remember, I told you before, you have to go back to the foreign policy and see why they're coming here in the first damn place. If our country wasn't intervening, stealing their resources, implementing coups in their countries, sanctioning their countries, we wouldn't have this issue. So always keep that in mind. So who should you be upset at? The politicians. That's who you need to talk to. It's a mess. Thank you, Cloudness. Missed the most important part, no interest. That's right. And there's no interest on it. No interest on the aid there. Thank you, Beatrice. Did you see the reports about Californian reps inflating bill budgets to kill them in the Appropriations Committee? They also killed CalCare. I remember talking about that, our single payer healthcare bill earlier this year. That's right. And from what I understand with CalCare, they had enough votes for it to pass. Thank you, Phyllis. I'm in San Francisco and pay $2,000 plus, but no reparations. And slowly Black people have been pushed out of San Francisco. And also from what I understand now, Oakland too.